I dedicate this talk to my late wife, Santa Cruz Hughes. We were married for 23 years. She passed away 3 years ago. She was the love of my life. I tried to start dating again, online. Have you ever been talking to someone face to face and they were speaking fine, but all you could hear was wah, 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 wah? Well, that happened to me once. There I was, Italian restaurant, fireplace crackling, waiters running around speaking in funny accents. And I was listening, looking at my date, and all, wah, wah, wah. I was like, what? I checked myself. I'm like, I'm feeling fine. Oh, she's not my type. I didn't even know I had a type. She's not wearing glasses. I wear glasses. Santa wore glasses. My mom wears glasses. Anyway, I got to save the night. I just thought to myself in my mind, well, maybe if I say something like, if you put these on, I can hear you better. But then maybe she says, waiter, check please? Anyway, needless to say, the night didn't end well. But I learned something really valuable. I learned that I have a type. I have a preference for people who wear glasses. And that type or preference affected my ability to communicate, to develop rapport at a time I wanted to. So here's what I want to talk about today. Where do types or preferences come from? How can they affect the rest of our lives, or our work lives, our professional lives, if at all? And what can we do about it? How can we check our preference and improve our results? So where do types or preferences come from? Well, it turns out that they are imprinted on us at an early age. They come from the faces into which we stare, the TV we watch, and the social groups with which we identify. Well, I had the privilege of being born in Ohio. That's great, Ohioans out there. I was in the majority. I was an insider. I had the right look. I was from Central Casting. I was born on third base, and I thought I hit a triple. Well, that was short-lived. In my teen years, I moved to upstate New York, and I wondered, am I really on the team? Whereas in Ohio, I was the belle of the ball. In upstate New York, I couldn't even get a date to the junior prom. I know. Tell me about it. In Ohio, I was in an in-group. This is our symbol for in-group. And in upstate New York, I was an out-group member. Being in the out-group, being excluded is painful. And it's not necessarily due to an immutable characteristic of yours, such as your race or gender. It could be a change of status, like in my case, going from a married man to a widower, from an in-group to an out-group. However, being on the outside could have an advantage. You know, it's possible that by staring into different faces, your types change. Is it the case that my preferences could have changed? Well, the answer is In Your Face. In Your Face, a book by David Parrott. In Your Face, the new science of human attraction. Parrott shows through countless examples that we have a strong preference for the looks of our parents. That is, the facial structure, the eye color, the body structure. Even the different age gap between your mom and dad can make a difference in the choices that you make romantically later on in life. So in my case, everything else held equal, would have a preference for a woman who looks like my mom. Thanks, Mom. And we know what we see, we know what we like when we see it very quickly. At my alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania, psychologists studied the data from 10,000 speed daters. And what did they find? People make a decision about your attractiveness in 3 seconds. So you might think, so what? You got personal preferences, they come from your parents, it makes a lot of sense, it's really not a big deal. And that when you go from the personal to the professional, you go from the subjective to the objective, you go from what you like to what you're responsible for, you go from decisions that affect you only to decisions that affect other people. Natural people do this, mature people do this. It's an easy switch from one to the other. It's natural. It's easy. But what if that's not the case? Robert Cialdini, in a book called Influence, Science and Practice, showed that we, as humans, have a strong preference for people like us. It's a similar to me preference. We ascribe positive traits to those who are like us and more negative traits to those who don't. So, for example, when we make our compensation decisions, I'm deciding how much I'm going to pay you. If I find you attractive, everything else held equal, I'll pay you 12 to 14% more. Data based in the United States and Canada. College kids like you and all around the country, sometimes you get surveys and you're asked to rank your professors on their ability to communicate. Assuming their ability to communicate is the same, you still, in spite of that, rank the professors you find attractive higher than the professors you find less attractive with the same ability to communicate. And finally, who here receives an email sometimes, to fill out a survey? Okay, yeah, most people. Did you know that you're more likely to click through and answer the survey if the requester has a name similar to yours? So, in this example, on the screen, you see Smith is very happy to receive an email from Smythe. And he's probably not aware of that he's doing so because they have a similar name. We tend to be unaware of this similar to me preference. Indeed, those of us in leadership positions are especially unaware. We overrate our inclusiveness. The higher we rate ourselves, the less inclusive we are perceived to be. So we tend to exclude people, but we don't necessarily do that on purpose. So let's see how this feels. I like people who wear glasses. People who wear glasses are smart. Now, what happened right there? You probably became aware of whether you wear glasses or not. You probably became aware of whether the people around you wear glasses or not. So what happened? I created an in-group, those who wear glasses, and an out-group, those who don't. All right, but maybe we can pick something a little more day-to-day. So is anybody in here a professor, a coach, a manager of people? All right, let's say every Monday you get your team together, every single Monday. And every Monday you want to develop rapport with people on the team. So you say, Drusana, how about those Mets? Sabina, how about those Yankees? Hey, Joe, how's the family? Jim, how are the kids? Okay. You think you're developing rapport, small talk, and all that's good. But what's happening? I'm in a position of power. You had to listen to me. I took a position like this. I have your attention. I'm a manager. I'm a professor. I'm a coach. Every single Monday, the same thing. Sports fans, non-sports fans. Those with kids, those without. Families, and those without. So what happens? You're developing a line of communication with the in-group. That, similar to me preference, people have that rapport. They know they can talk to you about that one thing, and you're willing to respond. Compounded over time, multiplied over time in society, that leads to conversations, information, rapport, and opportunities. But first, let's ask the question, why do we care? Does anybody here want to work in a fun workplace? Where people like to work there, they're happy? Yeah, I do. The University of Ottawa established that workplace ostracism adds more to employee unhappiness than outright harassment. This means that we fear more being excluded than we do being harassed. This potential exclusion, this invisibility, is very painful to be in the out-group. Is anybody want to make this a little more tangible, appeal to your rational self-interest or your enlightened self-interest? Probably so. Let me ask this question. Who here is interested in losing money? I guess I don't want to either. Do you know that the average investor pays more for the stock of a company with homogeneous management? Meaning, look up the company, look up the stock, see the management team, they all look like each other. Oh, I'll pay a premium for that. So this similarity preference can actually cost you money. There is actually a way to invest in companies that have diverse management teams with the same type of performance as the same management teams, and the diverse management teams perform better because the average investor overpays for the stock. So it can actually cost you money. I was talking to a manager once, senior guy, big corporation, and I asked him, I said, hey, what do you do with your discretionary time, your free time? He said, I don't know, that's why they call it discretionary time. Well, do you want to be fair? And I said, of course I want to be fair. Well, do you spend like free time with your colleagues who you work with? And he said, yeah, I do. I said, well, what about your breakfast, your lunch, and your cocktail hours? He said, sure, I spend time with people on my team. Well, who are the type of people who tend to fill up your calendar? Well, you know, the guys. I'm like, yeah, the guys. Are they similar to you? Yes, of course they're similar to me. Oh, the guys. Exactly. That's the point. I told him, I said, why don't you develop a one-for-one strategy? For every man on your team, every male, with whom you have breakfast, lunch, cocktail, do the same with a woman on your team of the same rank and stature. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Therefore, at the end of the year, you could have one-for-one, be fair, be equitable, and know that your similar to me preference is not disadvantaging your team. So let's say you're on the out group looking in. Question is, what strategy, what should you do? You're constantly feeling on the outside. Well, my daughter came to me in 7th grade once, and she said, Dad, I'm confused. I said, honey, what's wrong? She goes, well, I don't really know who to sit with at lunch. I mean, there's the honors kids, there's the athletes, and the drama kids. I was like, oh, honey, that's easy. Honors kids, of course. You know, it's better for your future. We're going for that scholarship. Okay, not my best parenting moment. So what I did is I did some research. I got the book Queen Bee's Wannabes. It's the book that's the movie Mean Girls. And in the movie Mean Girls and in the book, we learned that there's the queen bee. There's the target. There's the sidekick. There's the banker of information and gossip. But very importantly, there's the floater. The floater is the one that floats among the groups and can stand up to the queen bee because she gets the information she needs when she needs it. And she has a diversified power base. So I explained this to my daughter, and she said, Dad, that's it. I'm going to float. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, one group, Tuesdays, Thursdays, the other group. I got it all set. I said, honey, that's great. Off you go. Remember that scholarship? I got a mortgage to pay. So floating is key, but how does floating really make a difference if you're not in the 7th grade? Who here is in the 7th grade? Oh, never mind. So if you're not in the 7th grade, what do? Edward Smith, Northwestern business professor, established that outgroup members tend to huddle among themselves at times of disruptive change. And that makes a lot of sense, of course. So let's say you lose your job and you're an outgroup member, or you feel you have your outgroup hat on, because everybody goes back and forth, as we see, depending on the conversation. But you have your outgroup hat on, you're feeling like you're excluded, you tend to go to that same social group, share information with each other, okay, in order to get that job, get that information. But Smith showed, statistically, actually, the best information, the more likely, better outcome is on the outskirts, by strengthening the weak ties on the outskirts of your network. Now, if you're a floater, naturally, among groups, you can get the information when you need it and maximize your chance from coming back from that disruptive change, from that bad event. So, think about it this way. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. There are a lot of different people just like me. So you might say, look, if you're in the in-group, if you're in the out-group, in-group one-for-one strategy, out-group float, how do you make change? Change is difficult to make without following up. So what I say is you get a CYP partner, a change your preference partner, a breakthrough partner, somebody different from you where you can help each other. Let's say you're in drama, you should hang around with people from science. You're a domestic student, hang out with those international students and change and get a broader perspective to help each other. If you're in a project with a marketing and IT department, instead of having lunch with each other's just by yourselves, come together and regularly integrate and give each other feedback. There's somebody close in my life who's an introvert, and I happen to be naturally extroverted. So she is my check your preference partner. Every day we loop up, and she says, Duane, did you listen today? And I say, dear, did you share? That's how we check our preference and improve our results. So, as you go back to your classrooms, places of work, your homes, think about your privileges, your preferences, your programming. Consider whether using them in the area of the professional lens, the narrow lens that you use in your romantic choices, think about whether that's appropriate for the wider lens that you need in your professional lives. On the inside, adopt a one-for-one strategy to be fair. If you're on the outside, float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. And get a check your preference partner so you can check your preference and improve your results. So you might say, listen, Duane, that's great, love it, but how do you fix everybody else? Well, in my case, you know that I can't hear you unless you have glasses on. So I can obviously pass around spare glasses so I can hear you better. But what I would prefer to do is clean through which I see, and Santa would be very proud of me right now so that I can see you better. Thank you.